been asked by several people how I make the faced holes that I've just used on my latest quilt. I begin with my front fabric. This is the one I want to show to the world, and that's the right side of the fabric. Then I take a piece of waste or leftover fabric that's a decent bit bigger than the hole I wish to make, so those are right sides together. I quite often make non-symmetrical holes, but if you do want a circle, then find something to trace round. And that's the outline of our circle. Make sure that's positioned as centrally as possible, if that's what you want, in your facing colour fabric. Now this needs to be sewn around on the line with a small straight stitch. Now make an incision through both layers and cut out the central circles, leaving about a scant 1/4 inch on the inside. After the circles have been removed, carefully snip around the circle, trying not to cut the stitching. Now the fun begins. Simply flip the lining fabric to the inside, and pinch it in place before ironing. And these little waist circles are often big enough to make a hexagon or have some other function. So fold it and pinch it and then iron it. Once pressed, it should make quite a neat circle. There will sometimes be a little bit of rippling in the background fabric. Now from here, you decide on your feature fabric that's going to show in the hole. Maybe this one. Oh, how about some flowers? Make sure you've got enough space around the circle so that you've got room to stitch. And now we're ready to sew around the outside. And at this point, you might want to use a decorative thread. Once you've completed the stitching, it's worth spending a moment just to neaten the join between the beginning and end of the stitching and tie off the yarn tails, and then carefully trim the excess of the 2 pieces of fabric away. Make sure you fold the front fabric well down out of the way and trim all the way around. And there is your finished faced hole. Another thing I like to do, if using a plainer background fabric, is to add a little extra texture by putting points in. So this is a lopsided hole, which I quite like doing. And there's no limit on the size, although the smaller they get, the more wrinkly it gets around the edge. So here's my background fabric, and again, make sure I have enough room for the seaming on the back. So I like to feel it. And then take your little decorative pieces, pin them in place, before you stitch, and then they can be trimmed away on the private side as well. I first saw this idea in a book many years ago. Unfortunately, I don't recall the name of the book, so it's not an original idea of mine, but I do really enjoy using faced holes.